just to be playing music with them again and rehearsing. That's the most. Yeah, I was deliriously happy.
It was like strange, and I'll tell you something about that night. My fingers were so tired. I got to a point in that night, talking about that benefit, that I couldn't play.
I hadn't been with Johnny playing-wise since 1968. So it was quite a thrill.
I was excited about it. I was. I thought it was great. Great idea. And had a hell of a good time. This is going back to when Timmy and I started the band, which was yesteryear. I can't even remember what it was, 1961 maybe? 61, 62, somewhere around there. I met him in school, and he was a year behind me. And I was playing guitar at the time, rhythm guitar, and of course, you know, the Elvis thing was big and this and that. So he came up to my house one day. I heard that he played guitar, and he did a couple of licks. He did the licks for Richie Valens' Donna. I said, this guy's great.
I loved Elvis. I was like 13, saw Elvis, and that's why I played, because I liked him. Then I started playing guitar with a friend of mine. I grew up with my boyhood friend, and we started playing. And then we heard about this group that was playing in Dover, which was nearby, which was Bobby Brown and the Curios. So I think that the reason that I even started playing for a living was seeing Tommy Holder and Bobby Brown and the Curios. The reason for me playing the guitar was from seeing Elvis, and for doing it for a living was seeing Bobby, because we used to go to the Salem Club and watch Bobby Brown. He was there 7 nights a week, and then we gradually got the group together. Johnny lived in Morristown. You know, he went to a different school, but so it was me and Johnny, and eventually it was and then Gene, Bobby, and then gradually after like a year or so, whatever, we started playing.
I graduated high school. I was working full-time as an inventory manager at a plant in Wayne, New Jersey, and heard about this band that was looking for a drummer. And they were playing at a place called the Triple Lake Ranch, which was a dude ranch. I got in touch with Gene Allen, who was the leader of the group at the time, and set up an audition. I had never done an audition in my life. I think I was barely 19, 20 years old, and I was scared. And we went up this place, and I walked in, and it was like a small ballroom. I mean, it had tables. It was a nightclub. And the tables had a stage. I never worked on a stage before in my life. This was big time for me. Went up and did the audition. Didn't think I had the job. When the audition was over, they took me aside and said, okay, if you're willing to play, we'll play here once a week. And we'll hire you. We'll do it. And that, at the time, was the beginning of the original Argos and Good Times.
And then there's 3 guys from New York come in. There was a trio, and they're looking for a lead singer. And the owner says, well, hey, I know a guy that's done a phenomenal job for me up here. He's got a band called the Ambassadors, but he's losing them to Uncle Sam. Why don't you hook up with him? They gave me a call, and God, I'll never forget that day. I went there on a train with this woman I was involved with, this gal. I was in love with her, and she had a child who she claimed was I sired, and I wasn't sure, and that's another whole involved story. But we got up there, and they ended up auditioning for me as opposed to me for them. But I had a pretty hot reputation, and we just got to know each other and sat around and had a few dozen drinks and had a lot of fun and talked and chatted. And he said, well, yeah, you know, with your reputation and all, I told him my repertoire and the amount of time I'd been in the business, and I'd made several records by that time. And they were interested in that because they hadn't recorded. And so we shot back to Newburgh, New York.
As far as the group really gaining momentum, getting into the recording scene, you know, getting hooked up with Harlow's, etc.
Absolutely, it was back in Jay and the Americans, because they got into production. They were now into Cloud 9 Productions. You know, they were expanding, getting into new areas. They liked us because we backed them. It was a case of being at the trade winds. That's the opportunity that we had. You know, it was a break because we were a house band. Mm-hmm. Could have happened to any house band, you know. So, and they were buddies with Kama Sutra, you know, all the same thing. Richard Perry, who was going with a girl from some publishing company that's right there, Blackwood, I think it is, or, you know, the big publishing company. Love and Spoonfuls on Kama Sutra. They were all like on the same floor on 1650 Broadway. So we got into there. They, you know, decided to produce us. Booked us into Harlow's. You know, it was all like so that we were handy to the studio or whatever. And that was it. That's what got us rolling.
We played at Harlow's. And, of course, you remember the blackout. We had to have our first press party with all the notables there, and of course, then all of a sudden the city was black, and I remember I was at Tim in the middle of Manhattan, and there was just no lights anywhere, and the actor was an actor. Anthony Perkins was out directing traffic at one intersection. That was a crazy thing.
I thought Sammy Davis was one of the most charming and considerate men I've ever met in my life. When we met him, he was engrossed in a conversation with the people at his party. He had come to an opening for us at Harlow's. When we walked over to the table, he stood up and told everybody to keep quiet because he wanted to meet us, because that's what he was here for. And I felt thrilled. The only thing that bothers me was the publicity shot that made all the papers, has my hand sticking in it and Johnny standing in front of me. All you can see is my hand. And I'll never forget that as long as I live. It's just one little hand sticking out like that.
This big picture was starting to be painted on the wall to me. You know, we're meeting these people tonight. These people are in the club tonight. This person, wow, Sammy Davis Jr. Man, now we're really getting up here, right? And I could see this whole thing was going to happen. I'm going to be famous, you know. Of course, it never happened. The sorest spot, I think, that sticks in my mind back in that era is the Rascals. That, you know, and from what I have kind of gathered information through the years about them stealing our Good Lovin' song, you know, and I think there's some dirty pool played there, but, you know, young kids and big-time producers, that they're only looking out for a buck. And they took advantage of us, you know, like they did with other artists.
promotion, to be seen. Caper was one of the biggest girly magazines around at the time, and so to model men's pajamas in a girly magazine was it was a national magazine. Not necessarily that it was a girly magazine, but it was a very hot rag at the time, if you want to call it that. And we did that for nothing. I mean, we went out to this vacant house or something, just had photographers shoot us. We had a lot of publicity shots. We did that whole thing, and that was just to promote us.
That was shot out in Long Island somewhere, I think. Some house, I don't even know whose house it was, how we got into this house. That's foggy in my mind also. But yeah. There again, everything is starting to happen. Just build you up. This picture's getting better and better and better, and all of a sudden, the picture burns or a ladder falls down or something.
We were Pat Boone rockabillys. We looked like Pat Boone. We dressed as dumb as Pat Boone. Orange corduroy pants and Italian tablecloth shirts. I can't believe we designed these things, and we were proud of these shirts. It's the ugliest things you ever saw in your life, trying to come up with a good time image. We were wholesome guys, and we were the kind of guys that they wanted to put in every supermarket across the country. When you thought Great Shakes, you knew the Good Times. That was their product. We were going to make a lot of commercials. They test marketed. They ran the film. They used excerpts from the film. Test marketed the thing. Started doing it in different parts of the country. I think in New York, it was like upstate, some different places. And some places it showed very good promise. And then all of a sudden, they dumped the product.
But I remember in the Great Shakes thing, how the guy came in the club, and he had he had something to do with the Great Shakes account, and we never really knew why the thing never panned out. It just was dropped. And the guy said, "Oh yeah, everybody bought the Great Shakes. The idea of milkshake and an instant milkshake was great. But everybody tried it, and it was bad. So they dropped the whole account. But that's another thing. We would have had it, it would have been a good deal if we had gotten it."
A funny thing about it was my father had tried this product when he knew that we were involved with it. And he told me over the phone that it was the worst thing he had ever tasted in his life. He said the only way to make it even taste like a milkshake was to put half a quart of ice cream in it, which defeated the purpose of what this was for in the first place. But that was close. That was close.
Yeah, they're going to make us another monkey group or something. Yeah, out of this whole thing. Yeah, they did. We did, what do they call that thing? The screen test? I don't know whatever happened to that. Yeah, they kind of cleaned our clock on that one, too.
You were the first to leave the group, which also must have made it most difficult.
Yeah, because at that time, I felt that the group was worn out. Didn't know what direction they were going in, because we changed direction so many times between Kama Sutra and our producers and so forth and so on, studio work, like I just told you. And then coming back to our hometown where they, they expected the old good times. And we started changing. I remember the peanut shells on the floor, and we were playing that banjo-type 20s music started. I says, this is crazy. I says, besides, I'm getting older. I says, how much longer am I going to keep getting yanked by the chain? And I says, I'm going to hang it up. I want to get out, because I can't picture myself being jerked around like this and not knowing where I'm playing next or what kind of music I'm going to be playing next or who I'm playing with next. 20 years down the road or whatever. Besides the fact of getting old trying to play rock music to kids. So that's why I said, I'm going to get out of it.
I think he left the group because he was disillusioned. I think it was after a long road trip. I think he wanted a record more than the rest of us. And remember, this is, he was with us a long time. This is, this is, I don't know, 8 years, I guess. I think it was 8 years. I think he had it. The whole thing with the robe. He got so close. I think maybe he was just disillusioned or disappointed that we were so close and we had missed it. Like that chance might never come back again. So I think that he wanted a record, or would have liked a record, more than the rest of us.
Yeah. He left. He gave like a month's notice. He left. And then we had a scramble. We need a bass player now. Where do we go from here? We're scrambling. We need a bass player. And we came up with this other idea. Well, let's put an ad for a bass player in the paper. But we're just fed up with the road. We've been living on the road for so long that it kind of just beats the daylights out of you after a while. You don't know what it is except to be just in another hotel room in another city.
Well, actually, let me just correct you on one point.
Fine.
Johnny left, and we went and we talked to Louis Uzzini about working his club for a minimal amount of money as a trio till we found a bass player. We went in there with a 2-week kind of a thing. After 2 weeks, we had no success getting a bass player at all, and we negotiated to stay a little while longer. We negotiated, and after a while we realized that, wow, this place is successful. It's small enough that we can get along without a bass player. We stopped looking. We stayed there 6 years, which was as close, being a musician, to having a regular job as I've ever had, and still be a musician.
About this time, were you reestablishing yourself with your religious roots?
I don't know. This is not like what I went through religious-wise is not like anything that I went through really at all, ever. I was never really religious. I had a guy, a friend of mine came in. He was a born-again Christian. And he came into the club. And at the Hilltop. And he came in and he would talk to me about the Bible, things. And I didn't want to hear about it. At the same time, we were playing there and all that. He encouraged me to go to Jesus 78, which was at the Meadowlands. It's a big, gathering of Christians. Didn't want to go at all. But I went because he encouraged me, and everything. And it was there that I got very curious because I saw like 40,000 people, believers. And I felt deep down that there's something there.
Tim just, I think, had the whole thing up to here, and he got heavily involved in the born-again Christian thing.
This is where Tim does turnaround in direction.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most painful experiences of my career. Losing Tim, for me, was every bit as painful, if not more, than my divorces. That was, I cannot describe to you how painful that was. Because he was that right arm. He was what Buck Owens said he was. And I was, there was a friendship there that was incredible. Through all the years, the band had a kinship.
Johnny leaving was tough. Timmy leaving was crushing. I mean, Timmy's just super special person, and for him to leave, I got very close to just saying, the hell with it. And for some reason, when Timmy left, well, It's easy to understand, but when he left, the album just kind of like, stopped. Nothing happened with it. We didn't push it, we didn't have the money, whatever. It just laid. Yeah, I love the album. I love the stuff Timmy does. What we did then was mix it in with Craig, who took Timmy's place. Excuse me. Is also a writer, and we mixed in some of his songs with the stuff that we had pre-recorded.
Yeah, Craig Ellis was an ambitious fellow. He's not a nasty fellow, but he was obvious for him that getting involved with an institution, an outfit like the Good Times, you were assured steady work, and you were assured that you were with a unit, a musical unit that was revered in the area, and this would bring you attention. And he had a lot of original tunes, and this is, I mean, a lot of times trying to get these things recorded and what have you, he couldn't get arrested. This was an avenue for him to expose his products. Obviously, things were occurring behind my back. There's no two. I'm not condemning anybody, but I certainly am placing the truth, the responsibility, and if you want to refer to it as blame, whatever you want to call it, I'm placing it where it belongs. And Bob and Craig had something instituted behind it, because the night Craig told me he was leaving, all of a sudden, I went to Bob and I said, "This is insanity. I mean, he's leaving." And he turned to me and said, "I'm going too." That certainly did ring my bells.
To this day, Dave blames Craig for stealing me away and both of us leaving. I left because I was totally bored. I was tired of playing with the trio type concept. Craig and I talked for many months about doing something a little bit stronger, putting a bit of a showier type group together. I wanted to do maybe some Atlantic City work, some of the club work down there. I was just really bored. I was tired. I'd been doing this since 1968 as a trio. It was now 1983, 84.
I am getting older, and there's new generations coming in here. And I think that's why I stepped toward the country end of the thing, because I initially, talk about going full circle, I started doing nothing but country. And now it seems like that's where the old rockers seem to be walking to.
I don't have the dreams anymore that we had 25 years ago of being a star or living the high life or being recognized for your music. You know, that was great. I loved it. I wouldn't give those 23, 24 years up for $1 million. I really wouldn't. But as you get older, your whole outlook changes. And I don't want to do that anymore. I would like to play, but really be able to call my own shots.
Good night.